Okay, so hello, welcome to another Zoom group. Um, I like to start off with a bit of meditation just to sort of connect outside and inside. Outside, you'll be wherever you are, in whatever room you are, looking at whatever device you're looking at, whether it's a computer or a tablet or a phone. That'll be what's going on the outside. Oh, yeah, and I'll be on that chatting, saying these words. So that's what's gone on the outside. Then what's gone on the inside, let's just go into that a little bit. So if you want to just close your eyes and go inside, I'll be open and closing my eyes because I'm going to keep an eye on all this technical stuff here in front of me. So with meditation, I don't encourage you to get into a meditative position. You see in meditation, let's say I'll sit up straight and, uncross your arms and legs and put your feet on the floor. I encourage you not to do any of that, but to use closing your eyes as a way of kind of freeze framing your body position and seeing what way your body is, where just normally the way it was, just before you closed your eyes. And then as you settle into your body a bit more and you listen to it, you let it tell you what it wants to do. Now, for me, it invariably ends up that I do sit up straighter, that I do sit up a bit straighter, and I do uncross my arms and legs if I happen to have them crossed. But you don't have to. But it's good to, I find it's very helpful becoming aware of my just my normal position rather than assuming a position. And then it's almost like letting my body unfold as it needs to. My spine generally wants to become more erect. My head generally wants to start heading towards the ceiling. And if you just put your hands on your thighs, just place your hands on your thighs. And just come into the sensation of your hands, just what they feel like. Just that subtle tingling just under the skin, and noticing the difference between the sensation on the back of your hand and the front of your hand. It can be quite different. It's quite different for me. I don't know what it's like for you, but for me, it's quite different. The quality of the sensation. Don't forget to breathe. Anywhere you're feeling tension in your body, just let it go. You can use your out breath to let it go. You can keep letting your body unwind itself and unfold itself and change position as you need to. Let your belly flop out. Let it go as relaxed as it needs to. Then relax it some more and some more. There's a lot of equipment in there, and it's very easy for it to be tight in little knots and wrinkles all over the place. And just when you think it's really relaxed, you suddenly become aware there's another bit you've been hanging on to, and you can let that go even more. And your breath can be like a massage, a wave of massage that goes up and down your abdomen, just soothing out anything that's been held onto there. And just get a sense of the sensation in your thighs and what that feels like and how different that is to the sensation in your hands. And from the inside of your thighs, you can feel your hands resting on them. what that feels like. And then come into your hands, the sensation in your hands. And feel what your hands feel like resting on your thighs. And you go back and forth between your hands and your thighs, and your hands again, your thighs. And you can lift your hands off your thighs and see what that feels like, and then bring them back down again. And you can kind of go back and forth between the two, feeling what your hands resting on your thighs feels like from inside your thighs, or your hands resting on your thighs from inside your hands, and how you can hold the two together. And the more your system settles down, your nervous system settles down, you can have a feeling of descent going back into your body. And if you think of um, your eyes, and when you closed your eyes, as if you were looking through peepholes. All right, so that's my dog's barking. So that's a chance not to get distracted by things. My wife is coming back, so the dogs are saying hello in the way that dogs do. But you can still hold up the space inside. Doesn't matter. It's just sounds. Whenever you get a distraction like that, it's always a good chance to watch how your mind wants to, not wants to, but how it will use that to start thinking about things. And you'll find it starting to think about all the things, not all the things, but it'll start associating like things with dogs, what dogs mean to you. Remember that dog when you were a child, remember that dog you saw on the road today, or whatever. And, all these very attractive trains of thought that you could get on, that your mind just will very quickly come up with. Anything that you associate with dogs, noise, barking, distraction, and the opportunity with that is when you're meditating is to, as quickly as your mind comes up with things to think about, to do with the external stimulus, as quick as that happens, you can as quickly drop, keep dropping it, keep coming back to not thinking. Keep turning off the pictures, turning off the sound, the internal sound. You can't turn off the external sound. Keep coming back to not thinking. Keep coming back to it. So just going back to the sensation in your hands and coming back further into your body. Further into your body. Now become a little bit more aware of that back here, when you're sitting back into your body a bit, you can connect with other people. So start off with me, because it's easy. So if you want to reach your hands out on either side of you, that's sort of a graphic way of helping yourself to do that. So you can reach your hands out on either side. You've been very much with the sensation of what the sensation of your hands feel like. And see if you can get a sense of something else just at your fingertips. And if you just hold the intention that you'd like to connect with me, and that you want to sort of connect with me at in your fingertips, you may have a sense of something that's different to what you were feeling when you were just with the sensation inside your hands. So for me, I can feel you all quite quite well in my fingers. And then you can, if you feel it in your hands, you can let it come closer. You can have the feeling of almost putting your arms, on either side, shoulders. And back here, back out inside your body, inside this mysterious place that we got into when we go to sleep. It's a bit like the TARDIS in Doctor Who. It's much bigger in here than it looks from the outside. Back here, there's no time and space, or they work differently. So you can connect with me, but you can also connect with everyone who's watching this video, everyone who has watched it in the past, everyone who's going to watch it in the future. You connect with them all the time. There's always people that you can connect with. There's always people there. So if you're just meditating on your own, it's a lovely thing to do, particularly if you're having a hard day. As you're going into yourself, if you just have a sense, you can reach out. If you're in a room on your own, you can reach out like that, and you'll always feel people there. There's always support. In here, you're never alone. Okay, so I know I talked about descent and going deeper and all that kind of thing, and it can feel like that. Really, though, you haven't really gone anywhere. You're still exactly where you were. That place that you were in is still there, still available. Your room is still there. The device is still there. So you can come back into the room if you want, or you can just open your eyes, whichever. Really, depending on how familiar you are with meditation. If you're familiar with it, then I would encourage you to just open your eyes. Just become fluid between, what you see with your eyes open, and you could say your inner space and your outer space. You could say in existence or out of existence. Whatever way you describe it to yourself. I mean, they're just words, but you can be as present as you were in your body, out of existence, still connected to me, still connected to everybody else, as you were when you had your eyes closed. Okay, now, does anybody have any questions or things they've been thinking about or wondering about or concerned about? Because I'd always prefer to talk about the things that are going on for you rather than the things that I end up talking about.
Yes, I do have a question, but I need to think about how I can how to ask.
Okay.
um,
Well, I'll tell you what I do. Right?
yeah,
I don't I never rarely have anything planned here,
yeah.
which is very uncomfortable, but it's very authentic. So what I do is I just start talking, and I sort of to the side, looking at what I'm saying, going, "Oh, okay, I didn't know I was going to say that." So that's what I do.
Yeah, well, you referred before when we were talking. You said it they're very interesting times, and I and the in the last Zoom meeting you were referring to we are moving on to the time where there's no teacher. Um, Correct me if I'm saying anything wrong.
No, no,
But
yep,
yeah,
that sounds
that
right.
we're our own teachers. Um, and I was wondering if you could relate that to the times that we're in now. Um, so what's to learn in this whole situation? What do you think that we can learn as humans?
Yeah. Well, I think as I was saying, I think it was last week. I've been saying this pretty much from since I started doing these, you know, since I started doing further emergence, really, that and even before actually, because you were saying about that you listened to the podcast, like even back, months ago, just when it all started, yeah, it looks to me like that what humans go through, what we go through as individuals, is happening collectively. So individually, you grow as a child, your body grows, and then you grow at a certain rate, and then every now and then you go through a growth spurt where you just sort of shoot up or out or whatever, and that's a very easy to understand and very familiar kind of dynamic. Growth spurts, most people when you're talking about kids, they'll go, oh yeah, growth spurt. So that happens also on the inside because you become an adult and your body stops growing. It sort of switches over into maintenance and a slower kind of growth or process. But the process of growth continues on the inside, and most of the time it's a slow, steady growth. And then every now and then it goes through a growth spurt. And like I can remember when my body was going through growth spurts, my shins, particularly when I was a teenager, used to be very sore. And just like growing pains. The pains that you experience in inner growth spurts are equally painful. But the having an inner growth spurt, though, it's not generally talked about, and it's not generally it can be misidentified as all sorts of things, right? But so that goes on for people, but it's like it's going on everywhere all at the same time now. So and uh, before, it sort of felt like, for me anyway, there was me in my life, and I've always been interested in consciousness, reality, spiritual life, this, majestic thing that I love but can't name, you know, not it's not like I'm forbidden to name it. I just, every name just falls short. So that's been going on for me all these years. And, I've seen myself steadily growing in consciousness, and then I'd have growth spurts and then steadily growing. And it seemed like, I had just got used to that there weren't a huge amount of people that I could talk to about this sort of thing, because most of the people were not involved in that kind of thing, and talking about it made them uncomfortable, and um, it just didn't seem to be a thing. And I had just kind of, yeah, well, okay, that's just the way things are. That's fine. I know what's happened for me, and I'm happy in my life, and that's grand. Now it's like everybody is going through that. All the people who were not interested in those sorts of things are being forced into them. Some people kicking and screaming, but they're being forced into uh, uh, growth in consciousness. And that is manifesting as, it's like going from a standstill to a running gallop with nothing in between.
Mm.
And that has a lot to do with a lot of the fear, because the first thing that comes up is all the fears, because, that thing of like nobody likes change. It's very true. And it's true because there's a lot of, we keep our reality, or I keep my reality in place. I never like to sort of, get preachy and kind of go, this is the way it is for people, because I don't know how it is for people. I only know about it, how it is for me.
Yeah.
But I've worked with a lot of people, so I've got, feedback and people saying to me, yes, that's the way it is for me too. So when I sort of say things like that with other people, that's kind of where I'm coming from with that. But I anyway, and other people, we have our sanity is kind of based on a lot of internal reference points. Now, whether they're good points or bad points, it doesn't really matter. It's like we just know where they are. So there's my shame. there's my feelings of self-worth, there's my guilt, that's, my past, that's my hopes for the future, and we know where everything is, right? And then if we make a change on the inside, if it's drastic, if it's very big, like suddenly we get rid of our self um, doubt, it's just gone. That you'd say, well, that's great, isn't that an opportunity for celebration? But in my experience, it's if you get rid of it completely, it's very disorienting. It's like driving home, on the route that you've driven home, you know, thousands of times, and then suddenly there's a huge section of the road that's not there anymore, or it goes in a completely different direction, or there's a mountain that you used to drive over on the way home every day and there's no mountain anymore. It's that disorienting. You'd just be like, what happened? I had a mild version of it when I moved back to Ireland from Australia. So I was born in Ireland, I went to Australia in my 30s and came back in my 40s 10 years later. And driving around Dublin, which is my hometown, I just felt so disturbing because I used to be a courier, so I knew the road, I knew Dublin very well, and driving down roads, I'm like, what? This is not. How is this a one-way street now? Or where do those traffic lights come from? Or this isn't the way the traffic flows. For 6 months it was just I hated driving because you know, like particularly because my wife wasn't from Dublin, so I'd be like, oh yeah, come on, let's go here, and I'd set off in the car, and I'd get completely, turned around in the traffic, and I'd have to go back a different way, and I'd be like, I don't even, I don't know how to get, I don't know how to get to that place anymore. That's what's going on, I think, for a lot of people right now because it's happened externally. Like normally the process has been on the inside of
Mm-hmm.
like, yes, there's my self-worth and it's changed. Now it's like on the outside. So it's like, oh yeah, the way you used to go to work every day? Yeah, you can't do that anymore. You got to stay home now. You've got to stay home and face your family.
Yeah.
You've got to go home now and face your life. You've got to go home and just sit there. You can't talk to anybody really. You can only talk to your family. So whatever you've got going on in your family, it's right in your face now. And if you're on your own, it's like whatever you've got going on in your life, you've got very little else to do except think about that. So that's very confronting. Like
Yeah.
I've chosen to meditate. I've been drawn to meditation, but most people are not. Most people don't want to do that. Most people, like, that's what all the vices are about. That's what the drugs, the drink, the sex, the food, the shopping, you know, anything other than do that,
Yeah.
anything other than face that stuff, please. So, and now, you could see it here, the waves of it. Like there was a wave of drinking, you'd go to the recycle thing and there'd be just these mountains of empty bottles where you could just tell everyone is just sitting at home trying to drink it away, trying to, no, I don't want to have to, don't have to face this. Um, so it's like, it feels to me in my sense of it because that meditation we were doing, we were tuning in, like I sort of tune into the sort of greater body of humanity, you could say, when I meditate. So, one or two of the meditations I do during the day, I'll tune in and sort of get a sense of what's going on, and it's like the level of consciousness has just come up, um, and it's kind of in response to or in tandem with all the different things that we've been unconscious about, or just collectively we've been unconscious about, that we can't get away with anymore. So like climate stuff, excuse me, the gap between the rich and the poor, it's like that's getting so big now. It's like, yeah, that system maybe is not working. Look at how, that's not working out. Food, how we make food, eating animals, how we grow food, and all these things that we've been just like, yeah, whatever, once it's not right in my face, once I don't have to kill the animal or grow the corn, I don't care. Just give me the burger. I mean, they're not getting away with that anymore. So all these things are sort of coming up in parallel with this enforced global, pretty much meditation retreat that everyone's been forced into, and as I say, kicking and screaming. So for me, it's kind of like, oh, look, everyone else is having to deal with stuff that I've been interested in dealing with my whole life, and things that are, like it's a growth spurt, and there's a lot of growing pains happening in response. So I think it's good, but just really difficult for so many people, because I feel sorry for them, because it's almost like people have been forced into my realm, but I didn't, it's not like I was going, oh, they're all so unconscious and they should all just come and, and get more conscious. I didn't have any of that in me at all. And now I feel a lot of compassion for people, because it's like, for me, it came from inside me to be interested in this sort of thing. But you can tell, like, that a lot of people, it's not. They didn't want it, and their fears, like the amount of fear that is up at the moment, is huge. Now, those fears were always there. Those anxieties were always there, but they're just, right up in people's faces at the moment, and that's very hard for them.
Mm. So you
So
think that
that's what I.
so you think that we're tapping into a collective consciousness, or
Um,
that we're getting on another level of the collective consciousness.
yeah, I don't know. Like it just feels like growth in consciousness, like collective growth in consciousness. I don't know. Like, I mean, we were just in collective consciousness in the meditation,
Yeah.
so that's always been there.
Yes. Yes.
So maybe we're just becoming more conscious of that.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I have a feeling we're a good way away from that still. Like at the moment, it feels much more like got a personal development vibe to it. What people are going through.
Yeah.
If they're at home and they've got issues in their relationship, it's right up in their face.
Yeah.
That the issues in their relationship. If they've got issues with their kids, it's right up in their face. If they've got issues with themselves, it's right up in their face. So all those things are precursors to becoming more conscious, because the less of that kind of static you have, the more you can begin to feel your own being. And I mean, I'm not in trivializing them at all. They're very difficult things, but they're I think you go through those before you get into feeling consciousness or global consciousness or collective consciousness. And it feels like that most, like you, just based on the level of fear.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That is around at the moment,
Yeah, I feel a lot of fear.
Yeah.
Not.
Yeah,
No,
it's there.
you talked about this last time, that you were feeling fear, and then
Picking it up. Yeah.
realized it wasn't your fear. Or
Yes. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
I'm feeling that as well now, because, or I realized it's not my fear. It's
Yeah. Yeah. And did it help to realize that it wasn't yours?
partly not.
It's still unpleasant, but
Yeah, and I must say that, so I mostly work in my own studio, and or in my garden, so I don't see a lot of people. But when I go into town, I feel so much fear that it frightens me.
okay.
I feel suffocated by the fear that is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you're a sensitive person, which it sounds like you are, it can be overwhelming. But I think what I've done, or how I've learned to cope with that, it's almost like, like a Venetian blinds, the way when they turn,
Yeah.
they're flat,
Yeah.
and then when they turn, they're like that. I sort of feel like that on the inside, except lengthways. So it's almost like, if I know it's not me,
Yeah.
and if I know it's just in the air, it's almost like I can turn the Venetian blinds on the inside and everything just passes through me. I know it's there, and I can acknowledge it and go, yes, like I know there's a lot of fear around.
Mm-hmm.
But I, for me, just knowing that it's not mine, that I'm, it's like swimming in hot water or cold water. I never think I'm the cold water. I know, oh well, I'm in this right now, and so because it's fear or whatever it is, I, not 100%, but a lot, I can just let it go through me, and I can sort of move through without being affected too much. And one of the things that helps me to do that is knowing that if I become overwhelmed by the fear, I'm not going to be able to be of much help. And this probably comes from like treating a lot of people, like with craniosacral, because if someone's releasing something, some very grisly, dark trauma they had in their childhood, for example, because I'm connected to them, because I'm referencing now when I was seeing people in person, and I'd have my hands on their body, and we're entrained and we're connected. As they are releasing and re-experiencing that trauma, I am too. Right? That's how strong the connection is. And I've had like cold sweats, and just, when you get a really bad shock and you get pins and needles that just travel up and down your body really fast. I've had all those kind of things. I've had nausea, kind of felt the blows, if it's that kind of thing or whatever. So from doing that, the space to become overwhelmed in that situation and to disconnect and go, this is too much, is huge. So I have a feeling that I developed that kind of capacity to just let things pass through me doing that. Because if I became overwhelmed, I wouldn't have been much help. If your therapist just ends up in the corner crying, that's not going to be much help to you. So yeah, I think I haven't really thought about it until you said it, but I think I do that when I'm out as well. Like, if I'll register it, okay, there's a bit of fear, but if it becomes like very overwhelming, it's almost like the louvers just change and it just all goes through me in the same kind of way. And it comes, I think, from that thing of, yeah, I'm conscious enough to know that this is not my stuff. And I'm conscious enough to know that there must be a lot of people around me that are very afraid. So the most helpful thing I can do is let it pass through me, and be the maybe perhaps one person in the room who's not afraid or who's not overwhelmed by their
Yeah.
fear. And maybe in some way that will help everyone else.
Yeah. So it's a constant practice, right?
It was in the beginning. I think I just do it as second nature now. But I think it came out of all that treatment and very intense situations.
Yeah.
So I think for me now it's just second nature.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah. But I think the two key things there are, number one, identifying that it's not yours. Once you know that, then that sort of changes things. And then kind of going, okay, so if it's not mine, like, nobody is saying, no one's running up to you going, I'm so afraid, what's going to happen, right? If they did that, you'd probably go, oh, look, it's okay, let's go and have a cup of tea. It's okay. You would naturally just know that you're not that afraid as that person. So you just naturally, go, oh, come on, let's, it's all right. You might put your arm around it. Well, you can't now, but,
Yeah.
So, like it'd be the equivalent of that person running up to you going, I'm so afraid, and you going, I know, so am I, right? That's not going to really help them. So, you know,
Yeah.
number one, knowing, yeah, this probably, I was at home in the garden, not too afraid. Now I'm in town and I feel terrified.
Yeah.
Probably is not me. So if it's probably not me, the most helpful thing I can do is just let it go through me
Yeah.
and let it pass through me, and just, be like a rainbow of calm and peace that I feel like I'm kind of in my garden on the inside, and that's that's going to be much more helpful than going, I'm really overwhelmed, I have to get out of town before I finish doing all the things that I came into town to do, you know.
Which I did last time. I left crying without without doing the
Yeah.
stuff I needed to do. Yeah. So
Yeah. Yeah, very understandable. There's a lot of it around, but yeah, if you can have the presence of mind and the speed of consciousness to, number one, identify, is this me? Probably not. I was fine in the garden, so I'm probably just picking it up off other people.
yeah.
And if you kind of can get to that bit, then it's not it's not too far to kind of go, yeah. So if this is not me, I'm I am many things, and I can be invisible in a way to this. This can just pass through me, and I can help this fear by being, you know, present and loving and comforting, you know. Um, okay, any other questions from anyone?
Hi, John.
Hi.
Hi, yeah, I just going off of that. Like I also have a lot of kind of fear and anxiety, especially kind of at this time. But I do think it's mine as well. So as well as it being my own personal stuff, but I also feel a lot of kind of collective fear and anxiety. But then with me, it tends to kind of go spiral down into depression as well. So is there something that you can talk about that in terms of the depression, like depression and what that is and how to kind of deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, depression is a smallish word for a big field, It's almost like a depression spectrum, it feels like, because there's so many different types of depression and causes of depression, and I want to say flavors of depression. That's not a great way of describing it, but different, aspects to it. But if we're just talking about the following on from what I was saying about fear being around it. Okay. So what I was saying, like, one of the tricky things is to know that it's not your fear. So that's what I was saying to the last person, was like, if you're in the garden and everything's fine, you're not afraid, and then you're in town and you're really feeling a lot of fear. So having the garden as a reference is great, because then you can kind of go, okay, so this probably isn't me. But the thing is, like, even if you are picking up collective fear, like, everything has to go through your mind. So everything, like, like, say these words are going through my mind and coming out of my mouth. So it's like this communication is coming from back there somewhere, and it has to come through my mind. Everything has to go through my mind. So if I'm feeling fear, and I happen to be, in a room full of 20 submariners who are all traumatized from being stuck under the sea, right? And I'm in the room and I'm picking it up. I am not going to be afraid. I'm not going to be feeling fear of being under the sea, right? I'm going to be afraid about the things that I'm afraid of, because it has to come through my mind. So I'll be worried about the things that let's say I worry about money, my dog, and my garden. Or, well, that's just because it was in my mind. Okay, so those are the three things I love. My mind likes to worry about. So if I'm in the room with, the submariners who are terrified about that time they got stuck at the bottom of the sea, I'll pick it up, but it won't come through my mind and my body as a, fear of, it's like I'm in the room with them and I'm like, oh, suddenly I'm feeling like really claustrophobic, and it doesn't work like that. What I'll be afraid of is I'll suddenly be terrified about money. I'll be really worried about money and my dog. And what am I going to do about my dog and my garden? So it's not so much the content that gives it away. It's the fact that, two minutes later or half an hour later, I was in my garden and I wasn't afraid, and now I'm suddenly like terrified about my dog and my money in my garden. That doesn't matter. The fact is, it's, that's what gives lets me know this probably isn't me, because I wasn't feeling this before. But the content of it still goes on. Now, if I don't know that it's the others, that I'm just picking it up, then I will. There's the space there to start to descend into, oh, what am I going to do about my money? Oh, what am I going to do about my dog? And just, because mind can go very loopy,
Yeah.
meaning it goes in loops, right? And it bores down, right? And,
Yeah.
they have measured this in our brains as well, that we make neural pathways, and we like to, keep following the same neural pathways. So the like when I talk about speed of consciousness, I'm talking about how fast you can get ahead of that to be able to sort of see it, excuse me, for what it is, and go, yeah, this probably isn't me, because I was fine before, but now I'm not. And then to be able to, each time it's like, yeah, but what about that bill that we have to pay? It's like, yeah, the bill was the same as it is. It hasn't changed since that we left the garden. So, we're going to deal with the bill. It's going to be fine. We're going to deal with the dog. It's going to be fine. Just keep, going. This intensity that I'm feeling, this intense fear that I'm feeling, it's not mine. It's it's coming through me, and it's using the internal language of the things that I'm afraid of, because it doesn't have anything else to use. So it has to come through me in that way. Um, but it's actually, I am picking it up off the people around me. That if you can get fast enough to be ahead of it, that's one of the things that meditation ironically does. Even though meditation is about stillness, it actually helps to speed up your consciousness. That's my experience of it anyway. Because like from my mind's point of view, my mind doesn't really understand meditation at all. It just does it. It just goes along with it because it, gave up the fight many years ago. But so what I've noticed is that from meditation, even though from my mind's point of view, nothing's happening. My mind thinks, meditation's kind of rubbish, because it's like, yeah, we just sit there thinking, we just have to put up with it, right? But another part of me can kind of see, yeah, I'm much better able to get ahead of things. I'm much quicker to kind of come up to things. So like if I'm in an argument and I'm really, annoyed and like, what about my position? And then suddenly I'll go, yeah, I'm absolutely talking shite here. None of what I'm saying is true. I'm that just being completely defensive. That's completely false what I'm saying. Without meditating, I don't think I'd be able to do that. It's a very hard thing to do, to be able to get up that fast, to be, when you're in the full flow of righteous indignation, to be able to just stop and go, no, this is actually not true. Everything I'm saying is not true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That,
I mean, I find that that's what happens. Like I get into the whirlwind, and I'm kind of spinning
yep,
around in it. So it's very
yep,
difficult for me to kind of go recenter or kind of rebalance. And
yeah,
that is what I can't seem to be able to do. And
yeah. It's really hard to do.
yeah,
It is
like
really hard to do.
yeah,
So I wouldn't give yourself a hard time about it, because it's probably one of the hardest things in life to do, is to get that speed, to be able to get ahead of, this head of steam that you build up in things. I mean, an argument is a good example, because emotions are very high, but it's similar with everything else. Like with depression, it's almost like in slow motion. Like you asked me about depression, like for me, it's a lot of it is down to knowing what works. So exercise works. If I'm depressed, I don't feel like doing it. So I have to kind of go and do it in almost like a zombie-like way. And there's a lot of resistance on the inside going, this is bullshit and I don't feel like doing this. And, I'd rather just do nothing and I feel very tired. I don't want to do this. But from experience, I know one of the things that's helpful for me is to exercise in some way or another, or to change my environment. That's very helpful as well. But I never feel like doing it. Like if I'm depressed, I'm like, yeah, I know that going for a walk would be really helpful. I don't want to go for a walk. I'm too depressed. I don't want to do anything. I'm like, yeah, I know, but I know from the past that one of the things that helps if I feel like this is to go for a walk, and like I'll just be like a zombie walking along, and then it'll change and it'll lift. So if you can find things that help you, or not so much help you, but if you can find things that help to change it or break it, because again, I'm not generalizing about depression here. Not all depressions are the same, but for me, like depression has got a very loopy, spiraling kind of quality to it, and it's got a huge amount of inertia. So I can be sort of, just staring for a long time, like just I don't want to do anything. I don't even want to stare, but I'm just staring. And I don't know what to do. I don't want to do anything, but I don't want to feel like this. And it's like, yeah, okay, so I know if I do A, B, and C, it will help. But, and half the work is getting myself to do it, even though I don't want to do it. I don't feel like doing it. I don't feel like I've got any energy. I've got loads of energy for coming up with reasons not to do the thing that will help me. It's amazing how much energy I have for that, even though it's all going on in the inside. If you were looking at me, I'd just be sitting in a chair, and but it's all going on in here. No, I'm too tired. What's the point? Everything's shit. I'm shit. The world is shit. All the things. I can't move. I don't have any energy. I just want to lie down. I don't want to go for a walk. I don't want to do yoga. I don't want to go for a cycle. No, I don't do any of those things. But so the only thing it's almost like I go into robot mode. It's like, yeah, okay, I know I don't have any energy and I don't want to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I don't mean that in a sort of motivational, like I'm going to do it anyway. It's almost like robot. I feel like a robot just doing the things. I'm getting in the car, I'm driving to wherever to go for the walk or whatever. And then at some stage, it'll just, I'll have left it behind, because one of the things, depression has got an energetic kind of vortex to it as well. That's why it's good to remove yourself, for me anyway, is that like if I'm, say, it depends on, sometimes it's just in a room. If I'm in that room, if I change rooms, that's enough. If I change a couple of rooms and it's still not helping, I might have to get out of the house, that it's like in the house. So just going away and coming back can make a huge difference. It's like you get away from that kind of energetic vortex. And then when I'm away from it, my state will change.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Now, sorry, anybody, any other questions? Okay. Okay, I've had a few things come in, right? So if you have to go, fine. Don't feel like you have to stay, but I just want to address these because I was kind of shocked when they came in. So this came in from a youngish person, like, I'd say, they didn't tell me how young they were, but I'd say they're in their 20s. And they were just saying that these are the sort of things that they were thinking about, them and their friends were thinking about and talking about. And, what did I think, or what did I have to say about them? And I was kind of shocked because there's like a little window into things that I hadn't really considered, because they don't go on for me, which is understandable. So the first thing they were saying was that was an issue for them was rejection and fear of missing out, and that even though nobody is anywhere doing anything or having parties or anything like that, the feeling or the fear of missing out is even more intense. So if they're on social media and they see somebody who looks like they're having even a slightly good time, the feeling of being excluded from that, particularly if it's in their circle of friends, and the amount of interpretation they read into it, like, oh, there's a big party going on there and I wasn't invited, is intense. It's more intense now, and that um, there it's a real struggle for them to uh, take action or go to conclusions that are helpful rather than going to conclusions that are really unhelpful for them. So it's in that situation, it's like, oh, there's a party on and I'm not invited. Okay. Which, when you sit back from it, it's like, well, that is crazy. Like, we're all in lockdown, so there's no party going on. Whatever way you interpret that picture, you can be sure that there is not a party going on because you just can't, it's, you just like, no one is in anyone's space. But I thought it was very sad to that it's that excruciating, because it's kind of like what I was saying earlier on about something coming to consciousness. Because pre-lockdown, you could say that fear of missing out, or FOMO as it's called on social media, was a thing. Yeah, there were big parties going on. There were people, who were able to take great pictures in the middle of dancing, and they looked brilliant, And there was a sense of like, yeah, maybe that stuff on Instagram is real. Maybe those pictures, whenever I take a picture, I look terrible, but whenever, other people seem to have it figured out and they're having a great time. But now that's all gone. There's no big parties going on. There's nothing going on, really. And like that thing of fear of missing out, like when you it's like when you start to deconstruct it, like missing out, like you can't be missing out on anything because there's nothing going on. There's just lots of other people, your friends, they're in their houses doing pretty much exactly what you're doing. And they're just as afraid as you. So the only thing that's real in that fear of missing out is the fear, and everyone's feeling it. So you're not even missing out on that. You're all in the same kind of collective fear. But like it's a chance to look at feelings of rejection, which are awful. I mean, who wants to look at feelings of rejection? It's an awful feeling. But it's highlighted now because logically you can kind of go, oh yeah, I'm looking at that picture and I'm feeling FOMO and I'm feeling rejected. And logically I know that there's very little chance, there's very little solid reason for me to feel like that, because whatever is being triggered by me looking at that photo is making me think that there is a party or some sort of social gathering. Maybe it's just two people, and maybe there's just one person who's gone over to that other person's house for a drink, and why wasn't that person me? And why am I having that fun drink with that other person? Okay, that probably is all incorrect. Like, if ever there was a time to really be able to face how much that is being generated from inside you, now is the time. Because when's the next, like, when is there going to be another lockdown? Well, there might be another lockdown, but you know what I mean? Like, in time, in your life, how crazy is this where we're all locked down? So what an opportunity this is to really look at how my mind is projecting onto things, because you kind of know that it's probably, the chances of that happening, the chances of there being a party of two people or even three people that you are not invited to are so slim compared to what the chances were before the lockdown. Before the lockdown, as I said, there were parties, right? So your mind had a bit of, evidence that it could, use to sort of make you feel terrible. Now, no. Now there's nothing. All you know for definite is that you've got fear, and that horrible fear of rejection and fear that you're missing out. But you can bring your kind of consciousness to that and go, no, I know I'm not missing out, because the only thing that we're all experiencing is fear, and no one's missing out on that. So it is a great opportunity. It's a very hard thing to do. I know. I'm not trivializing how hard it is, but it is almost like being in a retreat where you get a chance to look at things in isolation. And the thing in isolation for this is fear of missing out. And the great thing is that that you've got so much evidence now that you can bring to it of like, no, I'm probably not missing out. So all I've just got is the fear. All I've got is this horrible feeling inside. And really, I'm sitting here at home. The only thing I've got any control over is how I feel. And if if I'm feeling this kind of horrible feeling of rejection, and it's not real, you're so close then to tipping over into, yeah, if it's not real, I don't have to feel it. Okay. Now, I'm not saying you force yourself not to feel something, but one of the beautiful things about consciousness is that it is transformative. So if you become conscious that that feeling of missing out isn't actually real, because it's not based in anything. There's no party going on. You're not actually missing out. All you're doing is being at home feeling this horrible feeling. So when you become conscious of that, that transforms it. It's not like you have to talk yourself out of it. It's not like you have to force yourself to feel happy or anything like that, but just kind of becoming conscious of, yeah, there's no party going on. It's just this feeling. And this feeling is just being generated out of nothing. That, becoming conscious of that, it starts to just dissolve it. Okay? I think I told the story about the lady with the diamond ring. I'll tell it again very quickly. And this relates to consciousness, right? The effect that consciousness has. So this lady has a diamond ring. She bought it for $10,000, euros, pounds, whatever. Loves the diamond ring. She's wanted one for a long time, and she loves it. Okay, so if you were talking to her, she would get it into the conversation. Her hand would kind of creep up to her face, and she'd be like, making sure that everybody saw her diamond ring. She would look at it, and she just loved it. She'd talk about it. She'd tell you how much she paid for it if she got a chance, and she really loved it. So a year after she bought it, she decided that she should go and get it valued for insurance purposes. She brought it to the valuer, and he said, I hate to tell you this, but it's a fake. It's only worth $100, euros, whatever, pounds. So she didn't fly into a rage and throw it away. She was like, oh, shit. Okay, fine. So what happened was, over the next, couple of weeks and months, she certainly stopped bringing it into conversation. She wasn't doing any of this up to her face anymore. She didn't talk about it anymore. Then she started to take it off when she was washing her hands, and she'd leave it on the sink. And it's not like she lost it, but it just wasn't around anymore. So it was either in a box at the back of a cupboard, or it was down the back of the couch, or whatever. But she didn't care. So that is how it works with consciousness in my experience. And it's very powerful. So the moment of consciousness is when she went to the valuer's office and he said, it's a fake. Then she realized that what she had thought was this much value was actually only this much value. What she thought was a huge value was only tiny. And that's what happens. So you're sitting at home, you're looking at your phone, you go, you just suddenly feel your stomach drop, and you're like, oh shit, they're having a much better time than me. Okay, and all the feelings of FOMO and rejection, having a better time than me, and why didn't I get invited, comes up. Then you can kind of go, well, hang on a second, everyone's in lockdown. I am probably misinterpreting this photo. That's probably not what's happening here at all. Bear in mind, this is social media, okay? So some people are very good at social media. But, just as a general rule of thumb, you can say that every image on social media is not true. It's a fiction. It's a beautifully crafted fiction. It's not like you look at movies and go, why am I in that car with James Bond? Or why am I James Bond? You wouldn't get upset about it anyway. Not like this. So you're looking at the picture and you're going, okay, that's probably not what I think it is. So all that's real here, right in this moment, is this horrible feeling. That's the only thing that's real. And it's not based on anything. It's just misinterpretation. It's just coming up. It's something to face. It's just something I have inside me. That's the moment of consciousness, right? The way you kind of go, this is not real. And I've put a huge amount of value on this, that I want to be liked and included, and I want to be over there where things are better. Always. Things here are not so great. Over there looks much better. I want to be over there. Okay. And you can spend your life continually chasing over there. But when you become conscious of something, when you go, this is probably not what's real. I'm looking at this picture, feeling this way. The only thing that's real here is what I'm feeling. And that's what I have power over. And the power is my consciousness. I'm bringing my consciousness to bear on that the only thing that's real here is this feeling. And this feeling is coming because I have placed this huge value on this idea that over there is better than here, when over there isn't. I know over there isn't better than here because everybody is in their house at the moment. No one is actually doing things. This is just a photo that makes me feel like this. And this is a chance to just sit with this feeling. And just being conscious of it will be like that lady realizing that her diamond ring wasn't that valuable. And over time, she will just lose value for her. Right. So that's that's FOMO. So they're saying loneliness as well is another thing. Loneliness is and trying to avoid the feeling of loneliness. And again, loneliness is again, like hearing these things is really, I found it very sad and hard, and my kind of heart goes out to them. Because loneliness is a very difficult thing to deal with. It requires a lot of consciousness, because again, you kind of have to come into what's real. And what's real is, you didn't know you were lonely until you met people. I know that sounds ridiculous, but when you were in the womb, you didn't know about loneliness. When you got into deep dreamless sleep, you don't know about loneliness. If you knew about loneliness, no one would go to sleep, like we think about it. Because even if you're sleeping beside somebody, that's lovely. You may be, your arms are touching or whatever, or your toes are touching off each other. That's lovely. But as you drop into sleep, that all stops because you come out of your senses, right? And when you're having dreams, there are other people in the dreams, and okay, not so lonely in this dream. But then eventually you just drop out the bottom of the dreams into deep dreamless sleep. Now, unless there's some party happening every night that I go to that I don't remember, and that's a possibility, but chances are it's not, and it's wherever I go. It's like the ultimate in loneliness, because I go into that deep dreamless place on my own. And where I came to from before I came into being, I was on my own. And even if I'm, have a Hollywood kind of death where everyone is around me who loves me and they're all crying, and I'm like, oh, bye-bye and bye-bye. Even if I have that, I'm still going to die on my own. The process is going to be, well, here I go, into forever, into the mystery. But that is, from a very, and you come right back from it kind of feeling, perspective. But up close, the feelings of loneliness can be excruciating. But that thing that we did at the beginning, that meditation that I did at the beginning, where you can reach out, there are always people out of existence. So really, when you, in one way, you can feel quite alone, but then out of existence, you're um, never alone. There's always people back there. Always, I say people. I mean, I say people because, well, I'm just used to people. I don't know if they're people, but it's a sense of connection and community behind the scenes is always there. And another thing I have found very helpful with loneliness is nature. That if you can get out into a bit of nature, um, you can get a sort of, it's not a conversation in the same kind of conversation that you would have. It's more of a communication. Whether you talk, I mean, I'm a human being, so I talk. So I might talk to the trees or the plants or the thing, because that's kind of what I do. It's easier. Sometimes it comes out of my mouth. The words come out of my mouth. Sometimes it's just in my head. And there is a communication back. It's not in words. It's in um, presence, I think. It's just something comes back from nature, whether it's a dog or a tree or a ray of sunshine. There's just something. You just turn around. That's the thing about nature, is it's pretty complicated. So there's always something, for my eye to look at in the short distance and in the distance. And this, if you're looking for it, you'll see the communication and you'll feel the communication, whether it's just the shape of a branch or the way a bird flies or something like that. I find that is very helpful as well with loneliness. But sometimes the only thing that I can do with loneliness is walk through it. Sometimes loneliness can just be a desert that I just walk through. And just knowing that the great thing about life is that everything passes. Now, when everything is great, I don't really want to think about that too much because I'm human and I want all the good things to last. But it's really helpful when things are not going well and I'm going through difficult stuff. So when I'm going through loneliness and feeling it very keenly, knowing that everything passes helps me put one foot in front of the other. Just take the next step, take the next step. It's a little bit like what I was saying with depression. Just breathing and taking the next step, not thinking about the step after it. Just take the next step, just taking the next step, and knowing that things pass gets me to the point where they have passed. And then I kind of look back and go, oh, that was loneliness. And from experience, the more I face things, the more I face things like loneliness, the less difficult they are. It's that thing of, understandably, we think that physical pain and emotional pain are the same. They we deal with them in the same way. So if I put my hand in the fire, I will just pull it away automatically. I don't even have to think about it. It's a reflex. If I put my hand in the emotional fire, it's understandable that the thing to do is to pull away. But unfortunately, in emotional pain works completely different to physical pain. So if I pull my hand away metaphorically from emotional pain, it comes after me. The pain doesn't just stay there, it comes. And the more I pull away from it, the more it comes. It's awful, but that's the way it works. The only way I've learned to deal with emotional pain is to stand and face it and go through it, which sounds crazy because, can I have a drink, please? And some sex and some cake, so I don't have to face that. But it doesn't work, because when you finish the drink, the sex, and the cake, it's still there. The pain is just still there waiting for you, maybe more intensely. That's my experience. So the only thing is to do that I have discovered that works is the completely counterintuitive thing of, when I feel pain, is to turn around into it, face it. Not in a masochistic way, but just in a practical way. That's the only way I've seen to get through it and to walk through it as best I can. Sometimes it's overwhelming. And if it is overwhelming, that's a chance to just stop, sit down, wait for it, the overwhelming bit to stop. And then, as soon as it's stopped, get up and keep walking through it until I've gone through it. I wish there was a simpler way or an easier way to do it. Maybe there is. I haven't come across it though. They were also saying that, talking about health and paranoia about their health, and that there's an intense focus among them on eating and exercising to gain some kind of control over the ever-changing world. Again, I talked about certainty. The time of certainty is over, and the time of the illusion of control is over. That's another one of the things that everybody, unfortunately, is having to deal with right now. Ultimately, it's a good thing because you'll come into a deeper experience of reality, which is that you don't have any control, unfortunately. Nothing is certain. And that it's easy enough to say that, but it's very hard to live it and live with it, that everything could change, that things we thought were one way are not that way, and that they're changing very fast. And really, the only thing I know to do with that, and this comes from not the current thing, not the current situation. I've been doing this for years. I've been with that knowledge for years, that nothing is certain and that I have no control, really. I have certain things that I can control, my inner state. I have sovereignty over my inner state. But sometimes even that I have no control over, because if I just suddenly, go through, something comes up that's just overwhelming, the only thing I can do is sit down and wait for the overwhelm to stop. But even that is me exerting a certain amount of control over my inner state. But externally, no control, and there's no certainty. So I've been with that for years, and I've kind of, the only way I have found to live with that knowledge is to be surrendered to it. Now, I think that's easy for me because I have, excuse me, I have a sense of what I'm surrendering to. If I didn't have that, I think I would find it much harder. And I've, I was raised as a Catholic, so the whole idea of God was kind of rammed in my throat, and it was all scary, and God was terrible. And I can remember my grandmother; it was like she was old school Bible thumping kind of, and she had God was a scary God of retribution, And I can remember, if I was being naughty when I was a little boy, and I tripped over, my granny would say, "God did that." So that's kind of God I grew up with. But then in my teenage years, I wrote about this in May and Noise, my book May and Noise. My teenage years, I had just had a very direct experience of God, or I hate using the word God because it's so loaded, but I just, it was up the side of a mountain hiking with the other my other venture scouts that I was with, and I just knew something was just communicated to me that night. And I've never had it wasn't even a question. So when people talk about, do you believe in God? I find that very a strange kind of question, because it's like, no, I don't believe in God. I know God, I have direct knowledge of God. So what do I need to believe in? I don't believe in anything. I either know it or I don't, but so for me, it's, and I'm using that word God, but it's, it's not like old man God up in heaven sitting with the big white beard or anything like that. It's just this huge mysterious thing that, is way beyond my comprehension. And yet it's part of me and I'm part of it. And I love it and it loves me. And, I've been in this kind of dialogue with it, my whole life. and it's like what I was saying about talking to nature. It's not like God talks back to me. I might you talk in words because I'm a human, but there is communication that comes back. So for me, the idea of surrender is surrendering to that, because there is a big movement to that thing, that big, beautiful thing. There is a movement to it. And I've sort of spent my life trying to be with that movement and to not get in the way and to try and be part of the movement. So that for me, surrender is part of, it's almost like a dance, like surrendering to the music of that big movement. So I can kind of go, well, I have a very limited perspective on things, like even now I can look back on when I was much younger and go, God, if that would have blown my mind back then. What I know now would have blown my mind back then. So I can even just see in my own short life how my consciousness has kind of grown. And I kind of go, yeah, so there's a big other thing out there happening that I just can't get my head around. So from my perspective, it looks like nothing is certain and everything is changing and I've no control. But I know that that's just because I have a really limited perspective. So knowing that, I can kind of go, okay, well, I'm just going to surrender to the mystery. I just kind of call it the mystery. Like I just surrender to that and try my very best to listen to what the music is and try and be with it as much as possible. Now, if I didn't have that, I think it would be very difficult. So I can't really, like, if you haven't got that, that makes, I feel a lot of compassion for you if you don't have that, because then everything is just chaos for no reason. And yes, you could get hit by a bus, or things could go, in all sorts of crazy ways with COVID, and it's all a bit haphazard and meaningless. And for me, it's not meaningless. I may not know what the meaning is, but I know that it does have meaning. Um, and I don't have any. I have lots of proof in my own life, but it's all very subjective. But I think that's kind of part of the deal with it. So if you can cultivate a sense of surrender, if anything, you can surrender to the fact. The fact is you don't have control. You've got control of your inner state. And the fact is that everything is changing, and everything always does change. um, and like, one of the things that happens when things speed up like this is you can become overwhelmed by that, and that's understandable. But then I often think about, like, if you go to a graveyard, or you think about people in history, or you look at a period drama on telly, like, depending on whether it's Vikings or um, Downton Abbey or something like that, I often go, yeah, they're all dead now. All those people who were so worried about everything, they're all dead now. It's all over for them. And I can apply that to my life and go, yeah, there's some stage I'm going to be dead too. That sounds a bit fatalistic, but it's more like, so what have I got? Like, all the things I'm really worried about. Yeah, it's all gonna, at some stage it's gonna be. I'm gonna be in a period drama. Like it's gonna be gone. So that makes me feel quite joyous in a weird kind of way, because it sort of frees me up. Like I'm taking everything very seriously, when really, yeah, I've only got now. I've only got right now. And if I'm not feeling great right now, is there anything I can do to help myself, you know, feel the joy that I know is under there? I know it's inside. Yeah, so that's kind of what I do. Okay, I'm going to leave it there, right? Because my voice is starting to break up a bit. There's two more, but I'll do them next week. So I hope that's helpful. And thanks for coming to Zoom group. And I'll see you next week. All right, bye.